Take 3. Oh my lord. Okay. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try and set a timer on my phone.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why mine is like not staying up. All right. Well, thank you for filling out that questionnaire. I'm gonna take just a second and score it. That way I can give you an understanding of what we just went over. So 1 second. Okay, so you got a score of 15, and so for the PHQ-9, this questionnaire kind of assesses depression severity in clients or in individuals, and so a score 15 actually indicates that you have moderately severe depression. And so this is just kind of like a tool that we use. It's not like a end all be all for what depression looks like in other people or just in general. But I think it is a kind of like a marker, an indicator, or maybe a warning for perhaps some depressive behaviors or coping skills and things that are maybe not as healthy as they could be. So I just wanted to let you know what your score was there. That way you can have an understanding of what that is. So let's just say holistically, after filling this out, after hearing what your score means, what are your thoughts? Does this surprise you or?
It is kind of surprising that I would score so high on a depression scale, just because I don't really see myself as being depressed. I see myself more as being anxious and not really having the side of depression. When I think of depression, I think of someone who, doesn't get out of bed every day and has a hard time and doesn't really value being alive. And I feel like I don't really see myself as having any of those things. So it's very surprising to me to have such a high score. But as you read some of those questions, I can see how that would kind of be relating to depression. So I guess as much as it surprises me, it also kind of doesn't. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, it 100% makes sense. And I think oftentimes whenever you hear depression or anxiety, these kind of really intense, just like mental health conditions that people have, it can really scare you and it can shock you whenever you hear it in reference to yourself. And so I think it's completely normal that you feel that way. And like I said, this is kind of just a tool. I'm not saying that you have depression. I'm just saying that this is something that points to some concerns that that we have about you. So moving forward from there, I kind of wanted to mention a few things that you talked about whenever we were going over this questionnaire. And you mentioned just feeling hopeless about your job search. And I know, from the moment you came in, that's something you talked about being extremely important to you and something that you've been struggling a lot with. And so I'm curious, do you feel like this is something that you've kind of labeled yourself as someone who's just searching for a job and can't seem to find one? Well, tell me your thought process of that.
I think it's just been so much of my identity the last couple of months. When you're in school, you're not really thinking about what's going to happen after. I mean, you are, but not defining yourself with that. So I think that ever since I graduated and I don't really have this label of, I'm a student, I'm working towards my degree, I'm doing all of these things, I really only have looking for a job to describe myself. I don't really have a career. I mean, I can say I'm a bartender, but that doesn't make me feel good. I want to I want to say that I have a job in my field, and all of those years of school I put towards, 7 years of schooling towards engineering. I want to say that I'm an engineer, and I think that that's part of my situation right now that's giving me so much stress, is that I'm supposed to be an engineer. I'm supposed to have done all of these things, and I'm just not.
Yeah. That's a really good insight, and really helps me kind of pose my next question. And I want to caveat, I'm not trying to be insensitive in any way, but I wonder, have you thought about um, maybe just some reasonings for why you can't seem to get a job, or what is kind of preventing you from getting to that position that you want to be in? Do you have thoughts of why that is?
I have talked to some of my classmates that I graduated with that, we took all of the same classes, we got the same degree from the same school, and people that even I had better grades than in school, and they've applied and interviewed for the same jobs I have, and they've gotten them over me. The only thing that I have in common with other people that have not got jobs is we're all females. And this career field is so male dominated that people that didn't even do as well as in school as me are getting jobs ahead of me, and it's definitely really frustrating.
Yeah. It sounds definitely like a bigger problem than just something with you in particular, and a struggle that you find common amongst other women in this field. Do you have other women that in this field that you've been able to talk with about some of these struggles?
Yeah, I have there's only a couple of us that were in the same program, and we graduated together, and we've kind of stayed in touch just because we kind of found each other in the program, because I think there was only 6 of us in the entire school that were women. So I've kind of kept tabs on them, and I think only one of us has gotten a job since we graduated 3 months ago, and we have lots of male friends that have also graduated with us that have all gotten jobs, and we're all just kind of sitting there waiting for our turn to enter the field that we've studied so hard to get to.
I wonder if you feel like this, the field in general is just working against you at times. Yeah.
Definitely.
What was your education experience like in terms of you knew what the field you were going into was like? Was the education experience that you had rewarding, and did it push you towards pursuing your goals, or do you feel like you've just always been fighting this battle?
I definitely feel like I've always been fighting this battle, but in school it was kind of like a challenge, It was, it was kind of something where someone's telling me I can't do something, so that's going to make me want to do it 10 times harder. And that kind of goes for everything in my life. Like, if someone tells me, oh, you can't run a marathon, I'm going to try 10 times harder to run those 26 miles. And if someone tells me, oh, you're just a girl, you can't be an engineer, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And it's kind of, I felt like that my entire college career. Someone always told me that I picked the wrong field, that I'm never going to be able to get a job, and I did it anyway, I am trying to prove them wrong, and it's just a constant feeling ever since I've been in graduate school, and it never really ended even after I graduated, and now it's kind of lingering now that I've been trying to get a job and can't.
Yeah, that sounds extremely difficult, and sounds like something that's been happening a lot longer than you even been looking for a job. So it certainly seems like a serious struggle that you've been facing. I wonder, do you feel like that also contributes to your feeling of just being exhausted and tired?
Yeah, it's definitely getting exhausting hearing my family and some of my friends tell me that I just chose the wrong field. If I wanted to get a job, I should not have chosen engineering, because it's just such a male-dominated field, and I knew what I was getting myself into, and I chose this field where I wasn't going to have success. And when you hear enough people tell you that you're not going to have success in something, you start to believe it yourself.
that's extremely hard. You brought up your family, and I actually did want to speak about that. One of the questions was kind of letting yourself or your family down. Um, you mentioned that in relation to finding a job. Is that the main concern you have with letting your family down? Is your job?
I think so, just because my entire childhood and all the way through, middle, high school, and even my undergrad career, they always told me, like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, something that it has an end goal, that's always in need. If you go for something that is going to be actively harder for you to get into, then it's going to let you down. You're going to let yourself down. And I think that's just stuck with me. Like, when people tell you that you're going to fail, it sticks with you. And when you do fail, it's kind of validating that concern that they had instead of pushing yourself forward and progressing. And I feel like that's where I kind of feel like I'm letting them down, because they've set this expectation that I'm going to fail, and I'm proving them right.
So, how do you think that affects your relationship with them?
It definitely puts stress on my relationship with them, I think. I have a really hard time talking to my mom and dad sometimes, because they tried to push me into medical school. They wanted me to go for a degree that is always going to have job security. That's my dad's biggest thing: job security, job security, job security. And I didn't want to do that. I told them no, and I pushed further, and it's kind of put strain on our relationship now, because I don't have a job. I don't have job security. I'm having a really hard time finding a job, and it's kind of an easy way for them to just tell me that they told me so.
Yeah. So, in light of all of that, do you think that you can see how someone from the outside looking in might see your situation as rather hopeless, and kind of like all of these systems, finding a job, the male-dominated field, your family just kind of pushing against you so hard. Do you feel like that, like do you see now why it can look hopeless? Yeah. It takes time, I think, to kind of grasp the reality of our situation. And so I think it's just progress that what you've been able to share with me, and then what you've been able to kind of recognize. I think it's important to just take a step back and look at kind of like your life, and what you've been able to share with me is really hard stuff. And for a lot of people, it could make them depressed. And so I think it's important to remember, and I want to encourage you, like, you're not the only person who has depression because they can't find a job, or has depression because they feel like they're letting their family down. And there are many factors that contribute to having these emotions, and it doesn't make you any less of a person or any less capable of getting that job or that career field. And so I think it's important to recognize the situations in your life, or the depressive instances in your life, for what they are, but then being able to, as I said, take a step back and to recognize that that depression or those feelings don't define who you are, and that you are able to take that and to be able to learn from it, and to be able to go beyond it. And so with that in mind, I kind of want to talk about your goals, just what you see yourself getting out of this therapy, and what you would like see yourself once things are better. And so a way we do that is actually, it's called the miracle question. And so it's called that because let's see if I can remember how it goes. Because I kind of give you this scenario. Say you were to go to bed one day and wake up the next morning, and by some magic waving of a wand, all your problems were to just disappear, what would that look like to you that morning? And then if you need to take a few minutes to think about that, go ahead, but just what does that look like to you if magically and suddenly all your problems were gone?
I think that if a miracle were to happen, I would wake up and I would have my career. I would be a professional in my field. I would not have to work all hours of the night to, pay my rent and buy groceries anymore. I would have a normal job. I would have a better relationship with my parents because I have a job. I might even have friends because I have time to spend with them. I wouldn't be exhausted all the time. I would feel whole.
That's really good. That's really profound, actually. I kind of want to examine each of those things that you said individually and see if we can maybe come up with some type of smaller goal that we could work to attain in order to get there. And that's why we pose the question is so that I can hear, but then also you yourself can hear just like what it is that you feel like you're lacking now that you want to get to, and then also just like things that are just in the way of you getting to that point. So the first thing you said was having a career. So practical steps, what does that look like for you? What do you think needs to happen before you can say that you feel like you have a stable career?
Just keep going to interviews, continue the process that I'm already in, but maybe, when I get home from this therapy session today, look up positive interview skills and do some research on what it is that people have that maybe I don't, that are going into these interviews to make myself a better candidate.
Okay, so maybe work on your interview skills. That seems like a nice, concise goal we can work on. So let's say over the next week, look up some interview skills or tips, maybe even videos on YouTube or something, and see what employers are looking for. Maybe see if you can implement some of that. I think we could maybe even try role playing that in next session if we needed to, or if we wanted to. So let me write that down. Okay. All right. So let's see. So another thing you mentioned was like having a stable job. So you're bartending now, correct? So what do you think having a stable job looks like? Does it look like simply maybe shifting your schedule around so that it fits where you are right now? Or do you think, do you feel like that's not something that you're gonna have until you get established in your career as an engineer?
I think that having a 9 to 5, having a steady schedule, not having to work, late at night, I think that's what I look that's what I see more as a steady, stable job. Just because, sometimes I can walk into the bar and make $500 a night. Sometimes I walk out and it was super slow and I make $20 a night. That's not the case when you have a full 9 to 5 and you're on a salary and you have a stable income. And I think that that's what I'm just looking forward to, is having stability, having financial stability, not having to work at night, having, a constant schedule, and not really having to stray far from that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's think of maybe something we can work towards that would be able to get you a stable job. Do you feel like that ties back into maybe the interview skills and making sure that you prioritize these job interviews?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. I think so too, honestly. You've always been mentioning how important these interviews and finding a new job is, and so I think um, until you get there and you get the job that is stable and that you want, then that's something we can definitely um, aim for. Okay. Um, okay, another thing you mentioned was a better relationship with your parents. So, first, just tell me what that looks like, or like what your relationship with your parents looks like right now, just so I have an understanding.
I think right now it's hard for me to talk to them because they constantly have a "and I told you so" kind of role in the conversation. If I ever tell them that I'm having trouble finding a job, they're like, well, you should have been something that is easier to get into, or my dad likes to say, well, you should have been something where that's women's work or something like that along those lines. So I would definitely say that my relationship with my parents is a little bit more hostile right now than it has been in the past and than I would like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ideally, once I have my career, it wouldn't be so hostile and I could show them that I did choose a career that works for me and I did choose a field that I am going to be happy in. And I think that would make me feel a lot better about my relationship with them.
Yeah. I think that's really telling of your relationship with your parents. It does make me wonder if it's like if that's not something that you can work on maybe before you have this job that you're looking for. Um, I know we keep mentioning it because it's important to you, but I think sometimes we can get caught up thinking that all of our problems are going to be fixed once we have this one thing or whatever. And I mean, it sounds a lot like the miracle question that I just posed to you, but I think too we have to be not even just realistic, but just we have to be aware that these problems that we have in life or these difficulties take work and time to fix or make better. And so I want you to maybe consider and reflect how you could maybe take a step or just reflect on what it might look like for you to have a better relationship with your parents, even if you don't have this job that they see that you need or they see that you should have. Not because I don't think you're gonna get a job, not that at all. So please don't think I'm saying that. And maybe maybe it takes time and realization to understand that your parents are never gonna accept you if you don't have this job. And I would hope that's not the case. And I don't think that it is the case necessarily, but if it is the case, we can work through that when it comes to that point. But I think it might be beneficial to consider what a better relationship would look like with your parents even before you have this job. And then we can maybe revisit that next time. Last thing, I think, yes. You mentioned just better relationships with your friends. So talk to me about that.
I really just don't have time to spend with my friends. Like I said before, going right from job interviews and applications all day right into working all night just kind of eliminates any time that I get to spend with them. So I think that once I have that steady job, I'll have nights where I can spend with my friends. And I know it sounds like everything is gonna just, in my mind, just magically get better once I have a job, but you know, I think a lot of my problems would go away if I had some steady job in my life.
Yeah. Well, I definitely hear you when it comes to that. Um, it's certainly very understandable. You are very pressed for time, a lot, as you've been telling me. And so, I do want to consider, some practical steps that we can take. Let's see here. Maybe, um, have your friends ever considered visiting you while you're bartending?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of hard to spend, you know, quality time with them if I'm running to go help other customers and stuff like that.
Right.
So I do get to see them sometimes, but it's just not quality time.
Yeah.
I think I probably could make more time either like meeting with them for lunch between interviews or right before I have to get ready to go to work, maybe grabbing some dinner with them.
Yeah. I think that's really good. I kind of want to jump on that and capitalize what you just said. I don't know if you said prioritize, but that's kind of what my brain heard. Prioritize the relationships with your friends because it's important, and I think it's hard, especially because you want this job and you need money from bartending and you are busy. But sometimes we have to recognize what is most important to us, or even just important that we haven't been able to put time towards, and that is your friends. And so I think it's important to prioritize some time with them. So if that is taking lunch with them before an interview or after, or just a thought, maybe one day you don't do any interviews or anything and you just spend some time relaxing and maybe hanging out with your friends. And I understand that's not always realistic every week, but maybe once a month you try it. I think you can certainly, you will be able to see the benefit once you do that, and it would be definitely beneficial to try, to just take some time, whether it's a day, once a month, whether it's an hour here and there, or even just call your friends late at night, or just at random times during the day. I know it can be hard sometimes to align schedules so you can meet up and whatnot. So sometimes just a quick phone call though can give you the boost that you need to get through the day. So I would definitely consider what that looks like to just prioritize relationships with your friends. And then when we come back next week, we can talk about maybe what your ideas are for that, and what kind of interview skills that you were able to research, and then we can maybe see how we can work on that the following week and go from there. Does that sound good? Okay. Well, I think it's a good place to stop. I feel like we went over a lot, and you definitely shared a lot with me, so I'm very grateful for everything that you were honest about, and the struggles that you've been having. I think it's really good. We've been able to discuss those things and work on some goals, and just have a better understanding of where you're at. So I really look forward to speaking with you next week to kind of go over these things we talked about, and then just see, where we can go from there.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, Andrea.
Thank you.
Have a good day.